feel like I'm watching Jason Statham today in the Meg because the answer to everything is the trench, baby. And the trenches are the answer to all of these questions and problems that this San Francisco 49er team has to address this offseason. I mean, there's other areas, of course, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. San Francisco, let's go, Bay Area. Let's get this thing rocking. And we look at this roster and get into the offensive line, and the offensive line has to be improved going into the future. You look at the guys that are going to be free agents too, slash retirements. Trent Williams, will he retire before the season even begins? That's going to be a big thing that we have to answer, and maybe that's something that after the draft he'll announce a retirement sort of speech. There's a lot of possibilities. No matter what, tackle is an early need in this draft. I will really see, and we'll get a true vibe. If they draft a tackle in the first round, that to me is going to be very, very telling that Trent Williams is going to retire. So let's keep an eye out on that. No matter what, though, this is a first, second round, third round need at latest. They got to invest here at the tackle position, but that's not it. They also need to invest on the interior of this offensive line. Another guard slash another center, especially center of the future. Jake Brendel, you know what I'm saying? Look, he's not a terrible player, and I know what he brings with a leadership role and all those sort of things are very, very valuable. But strictly on film and what's on out there, he struggles in pass pro. He's an okay run blocker, but they could really use an upgrade up on that interior at that center position. And especially since Kyle Shanahan, that seems to be a position that he values. And he just really hasn't had a good center for quite the minute. And maybe we can go address that in this draft class, even though it isn't the strongest draft class of the center position, but there are some serious options that I think would fit Kyle Shanahan very, very well. And then you look at left guard, there is some competition. Ben Barch, when he did get his opportunity to play in that Buffalo's Bills game, he looked good. Unfortunately, at the injury and end of the season, Burford can play swing tackle for them, kind of ended the year there, and can also play guard, can compete at that position. And remember, Colt McKivitz, if you draft the tackle, even if Trent Williams does come back, then McKivitz has versatility. He can play inside a guard, so I'm not like overly concerned about that. Center, tackle, those two, or interior, I guess we can just specify that we need at least two offensive linemen inside the top 100 selections, I would say. Out of those four premium picks that they have, I'm going to be looking to spend two of them here. Because, heck, as of right now, the only guy that I would say I feel good about going into the next couple of years that's going to be on this football team is Dominic Pooney, who was very, very good. And that's good. You know, I'm glad that they got Dominic Pooney, because if not, then they'd be really in trouble right now. Let's go into the wide receiving and tight end room. It is a much less of a concern for me going into this next season. Yeah, Brandon Ayuk got to get healthy. That's going to be the big question mark for him. Definitely took a big step back this season. I mean, he is definitely an elite wide receiver, or he can be an elite wide receiver. And I just lowered his grade because of this season. Now I fully expect if him healthy is one of the toughest wide receivers to cover one-on-one in the NFL. This is a man coverage beater. And once again, he is their man coverage beater. Debo was really their zone guy, get the ball in his hands, make plays, things like that. Whereas Brandon Ayuk, one-on-one, if teams are going man coverage on you, it's Brandon Ayuk who gets open. So they had that 1-2 combination. But with Ricky Pearsall heading to year number 2, I feel Pearsall is going to step up in a major way. Remember, he got shot into the beginning of the year, so let's give him a little bit of time. And I thought he came along really nicely at the end of the season. You got Jawan Jennings, who, I mean, the dude is, they need to give him a raise. Like, seriously, 49ers, I think it'd be good faith to give this guy a raise. He has been an absolute baller. He's a tough-nosed blocker. He's a good weapon. He's a great, on off the field guy. So Jawan Jennings going to get a contract no matter what, whether he does it with the 49ers or after the season. Definitely has earned that. The depth, though, you got Demarcus Robinson, so he can fill in early for Brandon Ayuk if he is out for still a little bit of the season, or if he needs a little bit of time. Maybe it's till mid-season that he gets going, and that's very possible. But overall, I think this wide receiving core is okay. Tight end is more of my concern here, especially heading into the future. George Kittle going to last year of his contract, getting older now. He'll be, 33 next year, come up contract time frame. So that is something where you need to at least get a little bit more help here. Think about the future, especially in a good tight end class. I think it makes a lot of sense to go and get a tight end develop here. You got Luke Farrell, who's going to be a blocker, right? He is a very good blocker. As a receiving option, he's not going to give you a whole ton there. But in blocking situations, Luke Farrell is going to take a lot of pressure off George Kittle. So I like the addition there. Not super expensive. Besides that, though, I mean, Brandon Willis, I did like him coming to OU. Maybe he can develop and whatnot. I just do think that they still need to invest in the tight end position here. Now, wide receiver is still something they can invest in. Don't get me wrong. And I'll be looking at the mid to late rounds. Somewhere on day 3 is where I think the sweet spot is. And then into the running back room. In this scenario, they always invest in, really. It seems like every draft. And I think they need to try to find more of a Jordan Mason in this room. You got your speed with Isaac Garendo as your backup. You got Kyle Juszczyk. So Juszczyk is back. I'm glad to see that it wasn't long before they brought him back after cutting him on more of a team-friendly deal. But Christian McCaffrey, hopefully getting healthy, will help out this running back room in the overall offense, because when McCaffrey's out there healthy, this offense, it's a different offense. And besides that, though, the depth is just very, very thin. And that's why I would say it's something they can invest in day 3 pick. And it's not an early draft need, but it is definitely something in this draft class they can find later on. Quarterback, not a need here. Mac Jones comes in as a solid backup. Brock Purdy, love him or hate him, he is a very good quarterback still. I would not call him an elite quarterback, but I would definitely call him an above average quarterback that has potential for a few couple of seasons where he is elite. And there'll be some seasons where it's like you're scratching your head. You'll be like the Dallas Cowboys and the Dak Prescott conversation where it's like, why are we paying this guy? Especially when they're going to pay him very, very soon and they're working on those contract details, I'm sure, right now. But there'll be seasons where you're like, why are we paying him this much too? So there is going to be some of those ups and downs with Brock Purdy. He is a solid quarterback, and good quarterbacks get paid in the NFL. And then on the defense side of the ball, you look at this defensive line. It's I got the horns going off. It's red alert time. I push the code red because they need to invest in this defensive line. Just like the offensive line, I think they need to spend 2 premium picks on this defensive line in the top 100 range. The edge position is less of the concern out of the two here, if I had to say. I do think they'll pick up a defensive tackle before the season begins, some sort of veteran presence in here. However, as of right now, that defensive tackle position, it's question mark, right? And look, Evan Anderson was a steal for them, getting him UDFA. I mean, come on, man, that was crazy. And I think he's got some potential to be a really good early down run defender and add a little bit of juice. He's a guy that can also get after the passer a little bit. Kevin Givens is a nice rotational passer, so they can get after the quarterback. Jordan Elliott's kind of like that too. He just hasn't really been able to get after the quarterback as much consistently. Got Cully Davis, who could be a little bit of a sneaky guy, who knows. But overall, like, this interior defensive line, clear need that we will be looking to address early in the draft. Edge, like I was mentioning earlier, at least you got guys like Sam Okuanu is somebody that you could keep an eye out on that could end up beating out Yuta Gross-Matos, or hopefully Drake Jackson gets help. Like, Jackson's so talented. When he's on the football field, like, you see some potential there. Unfortunately, injuries, big question mark. So anything you can get out of him is really just a plus at this point. So that's why I'm saying this is an area that they still need to invest in, and I will be doing that. It's just maybe not as early as a priority as this interior of the defensive line, which clearly needs an upgrade. And then on the linebacking core here, at least you got Fred Warner, and you got your stud number 1 linebacker. D. Winters has also had some availability concerns throughout his career so far, but he's a talented linebacker, and he's shown when he's out there, he can be a good, solid number 2. And I think that's the reason why they were a little bit more comfortable letting go Dre Greenlaw, and also the contract. They got to get cheaper in other areas if they're going to pay for Brock Purdy and other guys, et cetera, coming up. So they had to make some cuts here, and I understand why. But D. Winters does have some potential there that they've developed. And with Robert Saleh coming over here on the defense as the defensive coordinator, I think he'll coach up D. Winters. Saleh's such a great defensive mind. And that's why I will say that I'm a little less worried about this linebacking core, even the cornerback room, than some of these other positions. I want to make sure this defensive line, because Robert Saleh run through the trenches, let that pass rush get home, and he can work on some of those back end sort of things with his. I mean, he is just such a master at those stunts and gains and scheming up ways to get pressure. He's one of the best in the business. I miss him as a Jets fan already. It is what it is. We are, that's a different conversation. But you look at this linebacking core, they bring in Luke Gifford as some more depth. Maybe Tatum Butane can be more of just a special teamer. He has some speed, has some athleticism, can develop possibly into a rotational piece for them. I'll still invest in this. It's still something I need to continue to add, but I don't think it's an early, like, day 2 priority. It wouldn't shock me if they select somebody there, but I would say more of a day 3 pick to continue to bolster and see if you can hit later in the draft, especially in the depth of this linebacking class where day 3 seems to be a lot of a sweet spot. And then you go into the cornerback room here, and as I mentioned, just with this linebacking core with Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, it's a little less of a priority here, and I still think it's something we can invest in. I like Trey Brown. I think he's a guy that could be a steal of a signing and work out for this team in a major way and could be this DJ Reed for this defense, but Trey Brown still has had some injury and availability concerns, so that's something that we need to consider. You got Darrell Luter Jr. has also had some injuries, so keep an eye on a lot of those things. I will invest in the cornerback position. This is something like round 3 through round 5. I think that's really where the 49ers will be looking to address this, just based on where they seem to lynch and this organization where they value that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. But at least you got Renardo Green, DeMar Lenore, both very good corners, and Green has some serious upside. Lenore is already turning into a very, very good, arguably the best slot corner corner. If he keeps at that position, I actually probably should move him. I ranked him as an 82 as an outside corner. As a slot corner, I'd actually rank him as a star. So I need to kind of move up that ranking based on the star or the slot position. But strictly as a corner, like he is a emerging corner, so you at least got a number one there with Demarador, Lenore, and Renardo Green. Certainly could be a good 1A, 1B combination there. And then we go on to the safety room here. You got Malik Mustafa, one of my favorite names here from this past draft class. And you got Jair Brown, you got Jason Pinnock, Richie Grant, George Odom. They brought some depth in there with Grant and Pinnock because, look, Jair Brown struggled. Let's be real. She struggled immensely this past season. And I totally understand why they want to bring in some more depth here into this back end. Malik Mustafa was a great football player, somebody that can come down to the box, not afraid, even though he's not the biggest guy or anything like that. He's rocked up, man. He'll come down and lay a boom hit. I love what he does and run support in the back end and coverage. He's got some good instincts. He could emerge into year two breakout, even to bigger than he was this rookie campaign. And I think he could be the back end leader for them going forward. But certainly not an area that I'm looking to draft early because at least they got depth with Pinnock and Grant, even though neither one of those guys, I guess, is under contract long term. However, they should be okay here. At least Brown is still under contract. And maybe he can bounce back into year number 3. I mean, there's still some talent there with Brown to be had. Let's light a candle for this mock draft. We're going to keep it a good old OG days. And you look at this mock draft right here. You got Walter Nolan going this first pick for them at number 11. You can say, well, is it the greatest value? I think Walter Nolan has immense upside. He's probably got the best upside out of any of these defensive tackles in this draft class. I mean, Kenneth Grant has, all these guys on this interior class are very, very good. There's some really good interior defensive linemen in this draft class. So Walter Nolan certainly has all the potential. He's got all the tools, the traits, the athleticism. He's a solid run defender. I want to see more consistency when that first move doesn't work. He's kind of more of a try to penetrate, get in quickly, and be disruptive. Sometimes it doesn't always work versus those bigger, stronger offensive linemen, and I want to see more of a counter with him. But he has all the talent. The season he put on this year, huge improvement from his prior campaign. A very young football player too. They need interior defensive lineup. Did I mention that? And then we go on to round number 2, Ariante Ursary. I did struggle between going tackle first round, interior defensive line in the second round because of the defensive tackle class and how thin it, or how deep it is, should I say. And the tackle class is like, it's hard sometimes to get good tackles in the second round. And I feel like it's a little easier to find interior defensive linemen on the second round comparative to tackle in perspective. So I totally understand that. And that's one of the reasons why I kept kind of going back and forth with this. It just comes down to they need interior defensive linemen really, really bad. Tackle could be a huge need depending on Trent Williams, but Trent Williams is still there. I don't know what exactly is going through his mind yet. If he's made a decision, those are things where you got to sit down with Trent Williams and really find, because at least if Trent Williams does come back, you got your technical starters at the tackles positions, even though McKivicks, you could upgrade there. And I think Ursary could certainly slide over to right tackle. I know he has majority of his film at left tackle. Now his freshman season, he played a little bit at like 94 snaps at right tackle or something like that. I did not watch that film, but he could develop over at that right tackle position. I think he certainly could do it. And some people will argue that he might be better at right tackle in the NFL because of the lack of foot speed as more of that run blocker type over there. He's good at zone blocking, though. He's got a good first step, and that's why I think he can fit right in. And Kyle Shanahan, what he's looking for is a monster in the run game, and will really be able to get on the move quick and help them out in that on their offensive line. So I think this is a must pick. No matter what, you got to go tackle first or second round, interior defense lineman first or second round. That's really my combination that I really am in finding at the moment that they have to be looking to address. Edge position, I think we can hold on for a little bit, but I want to hold on a little longer to that edge position because I want to continue to invest in this offensive line. I'm going Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia. I want to continue to go after guys and improve this offensive line. And Jared Wilson's exactly what I'm looking for Kyle Shanahan and a zone blocker. You talk about fitting it right to a T, can be this team's going to be Alex Mack of the future, for Kyle Shanahan, long term, just a beast, stud core center for the future. And with Jared Wilson's athleticism, he tested out the best out of any offensive lineman in terms of the 40, and it just shows up on film too. I mean, he can work on his balance. I think he needs to get better at not lunging into blocks so often, but he certainly has the talent. If he can get a little bit stronger, he's got enough wingspan too to be able. He's not the longest arms, got like 32, just under 33-inch arms, but he's got a good wingspan. And I feel like If they wanted to, they could try him out at that left guard position or at least give more competition. Hey, Brendel, maybe you try him over at left guard. He doesn't really have a whole ton of experience there, but it is an option. You just figure it out. I think Wilson is a perfect scheme fit and going to the future can upgrade their center position, which is absolute need. And then we go on to Baron Sorrell, the Texas Hook'em Horns edge rusher, an underrated football player, man. I am a big fan of Sorrell. I was always watching, Alfred Collins, and you got Vernon Barton on that defensive interior. Like they've got some guys, but there was some dude that was just sticking out to me that was getting after the quarterback consistently. It was Baron Sorrell. Keep an eye on this guy where he ends up landing up. I think he'll be a great fit in a 4-3 defense. He's got an excellent high motor, relentless football player. Exactly what Robert Saleh is looking for on that defensive line in that rotation. And then we go on to Denzel Burke. He's been through his ups and downs. Okay, I mean, there's no lie about that. You look at the Oregon game this season, you say, oh boy, this is UDFA level talent. But then you look at some of the other tape out there on film, and it's like, okay, this guy, he's got some serious talent. You go even to some of the Michigan games and stuff like that. Like, he can play. Like, he really can. He can bounce back. He's been through adversity. I like that. Cornerbacks, they're going to go through adversity, but you have to be able to bounce back. Burke has been able to done that. He's done that. He's been there, and all those things. I think I said that the opposite way around the expression, so it is what it is. But Denzel Burke would be a nice addition. He's a solid athlete, not an elite athlete, but a solid athlete, and somebody that is typically pretty reliable in coverage. And at least he is a dog. He brings that dog mentality, which is something I'm really looking for from a cornerback defensive player in Robert Saleh's defense. As long as you got a high motor, that is one of the keys in Robert Saleh. It's like you go all gas, no brake is his motto. Then we go on to Isaac Tesla from Arkansas, and trying to rhyme that up, but didn't quite work out great. But you got to go ahead and get another wide receiver prospect in here with some serious upside and some talent. If you lose Juwan Jennings, which would be tough after this next season, who would be a nice little understudy right here? Isaac Tesla would be, and maybe he'd go get him a Tesla as well or something like that. A little puns on the names, but I think he would be a guy that brings him some athleticism. He's a really explosive athlete. He's not the most twitched up guy. Okay, don't expect him to be overly sudden in his routes, and he needs to work on that. But you talk about a dude that can be a tough nosed blocker, has good size, and he's an athletic guy and can be another playmaker for them in this offense. Get the ball in his hands. He's quick to get out on hitches and stuff like that. He can be a quick target for Brock Purdy in this offense. And like I said, as an understudy, big slot, that's really where I see him because he struggled versus press coverage. That's really not his game. He's not the most twitchy off the line. But in the big slot role, like a Juwan Jennings, that would make a lot of sense to me. This player on the draft list, Orlando Gaston the second from Syracuse. Big Orange, let's go. Let's get a tight end to develop here that can be more of a pass catcher type understudy for George Kittle. And that's really my philosophy on this one. I think his value wherever he goes, there's somebody's going to get a steal on Gadsden. He's a little bit like Fanning in a lot of ways. I think he's more of a loosed up, version of a Harold Fanning, maybe not as densely built, but he's a great receiving option. He just catches everything. He is very subtle at the break point. That's what I really like about Gadsden. Yes, he's not an elite athlete, but he has the wiggle to be able to get open, the wiggle and the jiggle to be able to move and maneuver and create space for himself just enough where a quarterback that can trust him that's accurate, deliver a pass, Orlando Gaston, let him make a play because he can do it, man. He's not much of a yak threat or anything like that, but definitely a dude that can get to be a good, reliable target for this offense. And I'm just a big fan of Gadsden. Then you got a Cam Horsley. I think he fits right into this 4-3 defense as a rotational one tech. That's really what I see. We got a 3 tech in Walter Nolan. You get a rotational one tech to bring more competition in here with guys like Evan Anderson on that interior of the defensive line. And he's a big, he's not the biggest guy, but he has a low center of gravity, can hold the point of attack, and as I mentioned, could be a good early down run defender for this team. Boston College. He's smart as a whip, too. If you go to Boston College, it's hard, oh, man, it's a tough school. But then you go into Khalil Mullins from Michigan, the Wolverine, and he's going to be I don't know, I'm talking like that, but the number 20 out there who ended up beating out Donovan Edwards really for the majority. He was clearly the better running back. He's got some power, and if you're looking for a Jordan Mason type of replacement, well, I think here you go. Khalil Muggins can be that guy. Mullins, should I say, is going to be that guy who maybe I'm talking about mugging dudes. Maybe he can mull some lanes and power his way through in those short yardage situations to give Christian McCaffrey a little breather with Isaac Guerrero as well. And then final pick, the Hoosier, Jalen Walker, a nice former DB that can be converted and is a linebacker here that played for the Hoosiers and was making plays all season long. Walker is a solid, a really good athlete as well, should I mention. Not just a solid athlete, a good athlete. And this team, Robert Saleh has done a great job. Go to Jamin Sherwood at developing these like former DB safety types and letting him to be a developmental piece just makes a lot of sense with his athletic profile. And he's a Hoosier. Come on. Anyway, a little bias there. Final pick of the draft. This is one of my guys in the draft. Luke Newman from Michigan State, formerly of Holy Cross. I did a full evaluation on him in the preseason and I fell in love, man. I gave him like a third round, fourth round grade. I stick to that. I mean, look, the arm length is a bit of a deficiency, and I may say of a deficiency because he got 31-inch arms. So some teams are going to view him as a center only prospect, even. But I think he can hold up at guard. He is able to. He has got some great athleticism on the move, and that's why I think he'll be a great fit in a zone offensive scheme that can limit some of those one-on-one power roles. And also, it's not like he can't hold power. I mean, I watched him one game this year. Unfortunately, Michigan State, it's hard to find some tape out there. I watch Michigan State games because I'm a Michigan State fan, but I was really impressed with Luke Newman this season from what I saw, and then watching the film strictly of Luke Newman in the Michigan game. He held his own versus Kenneth Grant. Yes, Mason Graham got the best of him twice in that game, but overall, I thought he did a fantastic job and has a lot of potential to be a late round UDFA gem. So here it is, everything after the mock draft. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. What would you do differently? What's your dream draft, right? I mean, you got to throw out your dream drafts. I try to be as realistic as possible. I mean, you could also say, look, Jared Wilson, he could go a little bit earlier than this in draft. So it's always subjective. Arion Tiercer could be a first round pick. You just never know. Try to be conservative, but once again, it's like who knows who goes where. At the end of the day, there could be somebody else that falls to them that they can draft instead. You just have to really play out the board and see how things go. But the priorities for this football team, especially on the offense side of the ball, is offensive line. They have to improve this offensive line. Dominic Pooney is really the only guy that you can expect to be on this football team in the next 2 to 3 seasons. So that's not good. They need to invest. If not, if they don't, then you look at next year, the year after that, this offensive line could look very scary and not in a good way. So that's why I'm saying you need to invest and maybe add 2 picks in that top 100 at this offensive line position. And then tight end, wide receiver, those are, day 3 needs, in my opinion. I mean, they could always add weapons, right? Kyle Shannon's always looking to add playmakers. The guy that I would be looking for a receiver would be like an Isaac Tesla or a Nick Nash type of wide receiver that could be like a big X developmental Juwan Jennings. It just seems like to be there a little bit of their type there. And that's really what I would be looking for them. Running back, they could add a running back with more of a power element in this room, and that's why I drafted Khalil Mullins there from Michigan. And then Rolande Gatson, just another receiving tight end. They got their blocker now with Luke Farrell, and let's go add another developmental wide receiving tight end. And then you go on to the defensive line here, and the defense, should I say, but the defensive line being the top priority on the defense side of the ball, especially in Robert Saleh's scheme. Let's let those guys get after the quarterback. We'll drop back more guys into coverage. Let's get some dogs in the back end who are just hustlers, motor guys, and that's really what, Robert Saleh has thrived on throughout his career, and it's worked very, very well. But we add in some defensive linemen, a day one starter, Walter Nolan, put him out there right away. Can be an immediate impact for them in that defensive line. Maybe you bring in one more veteran in free agency as well. And we also draft Cam Horsley as a rotational one tech on that defensive line. And then defensive edge, you should say Baron Sorrell. I talked about him. I think he could be a little steal for this football team. And especially if Drake Jackson's injuries continue, you need to add some more depth. Who can be that number 4 edge rusher? Maybe Robert Beal, who knows? But you got Jonathan Garvin and some other guys out here to watch out for, Taron Jackson, etc. But for right now, I would definitely say let's add a little bit more. But Sam Okuwanu definitely has some potential to be their starter. Eutychus Matos, a little shaky. Other than the Bears game this season, I didn't see a whole ton from him. So that's why I think they still need to add edge for sure. But I just think that interior defense line being the priority there. Cornerback wise, definitely want to add somebody there. 3rd through 5th round. I think that's a sweet spot for where the Niners will be looking. Denzel Burke is a perfect scheme fit for Saleh, who plays, who on 3rd down package, he likes to get creative with those 3rd down blitzes. So he'll go to man coverage. Burke can do that. Burke can go to man coverage. I think he's a cover 1, cover 3, cover 4 quarters type of corner. And I think that fits perfectly with Robert Saleh. And then linebacker, a developmental hybrid safety sort of player that has the athletic traits like a Jamian Sherwood that Robert Saleh can take under his wing and develop and maybe be a future role player for this football team. If nothing else, a good core special teamer. So that's kind of where I'm at with this draft. Hopefully I explained that well enough for the Bay Area 49ers, San Francisco. So I hope you guys have a really good day. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. I'll talk to you later.